These past few days, there have been tornado warnings non-stop, 3 days in a row. But honestly, I don't think what's out there is a tornado. I live in the American Midwest. Weather alerts are normal here, especially tornado warnings. April through June is peak season, though we sometimes get late storms into midsummer. But 3 straight days of warnings? That's unusual. It started 3 days ago. I came home after a long day, collapsed on the couch with a beer in one hand and a microwave dinner in the other. My dog, Mingsy, a small rescue, is usually well-behaved and likes to curl up at my feet. That night, he did the same. I wasn't planning anything special, just a few drinks, some late-night junk TV until I nodded off. That's my standard way to unwind. Then my TV and phone screamed the alert at the same time. Tornado warning. I frowned, looked out the window. It was gloomy, but nothing like tornado weather. Still, out of habit, I dragged myself off the couch, grabbed Mingsy and my dinner, and went down to the storm cellar. Of course, only after I closed the door did I realize I'd left my beer upstairs. The basement is about as bare bones as the rest of the house. You can picture it. I stumbled down the stairs in the dark, felt along the wall until I found the light switch. I knew the power might not hold, so I fired up the backup generator, checked the food and water supplies, and all good. I sat in the old wooden chair, turned on the radio, planning to listen for half an hour or so until the signal cut out. I ate while the radio scratched and popped, then an emergency broadcast cut through. Residents of Sanner County, Kansas, please be advised. Remain indoors or in underground shelters immediately. Close and secure all windows and lock all doors. Seal the shelter entrance. Do not answer the door or respond to any cries for help or knocking. Under any circumstances, await official all-clear notices. Stay safe. Good luck. What the hell? I almost choked on my food. I cranked the volume and made sure I'd heard it right. Seal the shelter entrance. Do not answer the door or respond to any cries for help or knocking. That woke me up. What the hell was going on? I'm a Midwest native, not a meteorologist, but I've ridden out enough storms, lightning, and real tornadoes to know this was wrong. Never in my life had I heard an order to not answer the door. It made no sense. At first, I told myself maybe there were fleeing criminals taking advantage of the storm, and the county wanted people to stay inside. But even if that were true, robbers wouldn't bang on doors shouting for help. They don't want attention. I tried not to think too much and went to bed early with Mingsy. There wasn't much else to do, and the roof kept getting pounded by rain. I must have been woken around 3 a.m. Mingsy started barking, low and sudden, at the cellar door. He never barked like that during storms unless he heard footsteps. I froze, crept up the stairs, pressed my ear to the storm cellar door. All I heard was heavy rain and distant thunder. Strange, the tornado should have passed by then. I had the radio up loud too, in case there were updates. I was about to go back upstairs when the front door opened with a soft click. My mind went blank. I'd forgotten to lock the door. Mings's barking shot up, raw and tearing, and I calmed him down as best I could. His low growl kept going, getting more alert. I jammed a board against the cellar door from the inside so it wouldn't open easily. Then I heard footsteps. Light but distinct on the living room carpet, slow, wet, as if something were dragging. Every nerve in me tightened. My shotgun was upstairs. The only thing in reach was a steak knife from the toolbox. I turned off the light and cursed myself for having left it on. Quietly, I peered through the narrow gap between the 2 planks of the cellar door. I could see the couch, the stairway, the closed bathroom door, nothing more, but Mingza kept muttering under his breath, like he was locked onto some threat. Then, something knocked. At first it was a soft tap like a fingertip. I almost wrote it off as rain. A few seconds later it turned into a brutal pounding. Bang, bang, bang. The door trembled as if someone was ramming it with their whole body. The wood creaked and strained. It felt like it could split at any second. Heavy breathing came from the other side. Thick, wet, as if whatever was there had just climbed out of water. I yelped back, nearly falling down the stairs. I steadied myself and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Get out of my house! I'm armed!" I tried to make it sound fierce, but my voice shook. The pounding stopped. I stood there stunned, thinking maybe I'd scared it off. For a few seconds it was quiet. The doorknob twisted. "Hey, buddy!" A voice came through the door. Low, warped like a broken tape loop with electronic hiss. "Let me in. Please, it's dangerous out here." I can't hold on much longer, I froze. It was my brother's voice, but that was impossible. My brother died in a car crash 3 years ago. I buried him. I remember the denim jacket he always wore. Now someone, or something, was outside the cellar, using that voice, asking to be let in with that familiar cadence that had lived in my bones. Every fiber of me screamed, "That isn't Mark." It was some loathsome thing imitating him. Despite that, I heard myself blurt, "Mark?" It answered immediately, almost tenderly. "Yeah, it's me. Long time no see. Let me in. I want to see you." But on the last words, the voice shifted. Lower, raspy, slimy, like fingernails scraping cold metal. It stopped sounding like Mark. I knew then I couldn't respond. I held my breath, clenched my teeth, and stayed silent. It didn't give up. It kept begging, "Eric, please, for God's sake, let me in. It's so dangerous out here. The storm, it's so bad." The words were forced, squeezed out of something that shouldn't be able to speak. I bit down and forced myself not to make even the smallest noise. Then it got angry. A shriek rent the night, not human at all. A sick, piercing wail that shook the cellar air like 1,000 needles stabbing my eardrums. I gagged. The door was battered again and again, the wood protesting as though it might give way. That thing stayed at my door all night. Sometimes it whispered. Sometimes it screamed. Sometimes it pounded like a beast trying to break in. It was patient, monstrous, like it had nothing but time and hunger. I curled up in that cramped shelter, hands over my ears, hugging Mingza, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. Praying on repeat, "Please let it be morning. Please, please let it be morning." After a long while, it finally quieted down. Mingza and I sat in the cellar, motionless. Outside there was only the storm's howl, nothing else. Just when I thought I'd made it through, the radio crackled to life. "The emergency weather alert has been lifted. Residents may leave shelters and inspect their homes. This concludes the latest notice." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Was it finally over? But something was off. Usually, after an all clear, the broadcast continues. Damage reports, shelter locations, supply points, even details about temporary medical care and cots. Not this time. There was only one cold line, "You may come out," and I could still hear thunder in the distance, faint. But the sky didn't sound like a storm that had passed. A chill crawled up my spine. This wasn't a normal broadcast. The radio, like it had a mind of its own, replayed that sentence every few minutes in the same even tone, as if urging me out. I was moments from yanking the plug. It was too weird. But I didn't. What if an official bulletin came through later? I couldn't risk missing it, and so 3 more days passed. The storm did not let up. The radio did not stop. The thing outside did not leave. Sometimes it would pound the door with its fists, as if to remind me, "Hey, I'm still here. I was at my limit. If not for Mingzi, I might have gone mad." I managed short naps here and there, not much, but enough to keep my wits. And whenever I was awake, that thing would speak. It used that grotesque, almost my brother voice to repeat, cajole, threaten, trying to make me open the door, and the radio kept repeating, gently, "You may come out." It was maddening. But I wasn't idle. I started digging into the back wall of the cellar. When I first bought the house, the previous owner had mentioned there was another door behind the basement wall that led outside but had been sealed by a collapse of dirt and rubble. I'd never paid it any mind then. Now, it felt like my only way out. I also remembered an old landline phone tucked in the corner, hardwired, not wireless. I tried calling neighbors. The first few calls went unanswered. I figured they were sheltering or had already left. Just as I was about to give up, the thing spoke again. "You can't reach them." "I can help. Let me in." "I have food and water." I laughed coldly. Food and water? I had plenty. My supplies could last days. I even had extra dog food for Mingzi. He'd been terrified, but he'd eaten well. Some might say using the dog as bait would be the sensible move. To me, Mingzi was family, not a tool. Back to the point, the basement was crude, but I had emergency stuff stashed. A few more days wouldn't kill me. I called again. This time someone answered. "Hello? Mr. Robinson?" "It's Eric." "Can I come by and wait out the storm at your place?" A beat of silence then. "Is something wrong there?" I hesitated. How do you tell someone, there's a monster outside pretending to be my dead brother? I was afraid he'd think I was joking, or worse, he'd come over and get himself killed. So I lied. Not exactly, but I omitted the worst. My supplies are running low and my generator's acting up. Can I take shelter at your place until the storm passes? He answered quickly. Of course! We've got plenty. Come to our back door and knock. We'll let you in. Thank you. I'm on my way. After I hung up, I prayed silently the person I talked to was the real Robinson, not that thing. I had a small confidence an imitation would sound off. It might mimic timbre, but it couldn't mimic the subtle cadences of genuine worry or the small lil things that make someone sound human. I was betting everything on that. For days I'd been chipping away at the wall. On the fourth morning, I took a small trowel and kept at it. The storm made the cellar humid and hot. I was drenched in sweat. Behind the wall was mostly packed earth mixed with bits of stone and roofing tiles, the remnants of whatever had collapsed long ago. The ceiling leaked. The trowel eventually snapped and I dug with my hands. By around 6 in the evening, I finally cleared, enough to free the old cellar door. All that remained was getting whatever attention I could and getting out with. Mingzi and I planned it out in my head, gathered materials for distraction for half an hour, fed Mingzi a decent meal, and microwaved a bowl of instant noodles in 59 seconds, maybe my last basement meal. I replaced the sturdy board that barred the cellar exit with a brittle scrap of wood I'd pried loose while digging. It looked like a latch but would splinter with a gentle blow. I lashed it in place with rope so it looked secure, yet could break when I needed it to. I stuffed my backpack with food, water, batteries, and I strapped Mingzi into it. Thank God he was small enough to fit barely. One hand held the rope, the other gripped the steak knife. At the newly cleared outside door, I took a deep breath and bellowed, "You thing! Get out here!" Then I shoved the door open and ran without looking back. I tore across the yard, over the dead grass, through the ragged low fence, sprinting to the Robinsons' back door. I pounded on their door and shouted, "It's me! Let me in!" The door opened. Mrs. Robinson stood there, wet and worried-faced. Come in. You're soaked. What are you doing out there?" I didn't hesitate. I shoved past and tumbled down into their basement, panting and filthy with mud and rain. Then I froze. The basement was pitch dark. No lights. Not a single bulb. I tried to sound casual. "Mr. Robinson, is everything okay here?" A voice from a shadowed corner answered warmly. "Eric! Finally you made it." So glad to have a guest. Alarm bells screamed through me. He went on with a smile in his tone. "Sorry it's so dark. Our generator went out about an hour ago." I forced a smile and said, "No problem. Beats staying in a cellar hungry." To be honest, for one relieved heartbeat, I was just glad to be out of that thing's reach. Then he asked, as if it were the most natural question, "By the way, when did your brother Mark last come by?" I felt like I'd been struck. My body froze. What? I managed. He sounded calm. "Your brother. He came looking for you earlier. Asked where you were." A cold prickle ran through me. My heart skipped. I lowered my voice. "Where is Mark now?" I scanned the dark basement, but it was like looking into ink. I couldn't see a hand in front of me. Only my own breath echoed. Mark? I called. Silence swallowed the room. My heavy breathing was the only sound, bouncing off the concrete in the dark.